This is not an easy thing. A wider politics of the common good seems to me to require a broader understanding of what politics is about. And I want to make a plea that politics is not a one-way street. That politics and the political process and the establishment of the common good is not just about us. It's become more about us than it was in the past. Modern society finds it incredibly easy to commentate upon issues. It finds it incredibly easy to campaign upon issues. It finds it much more difficult to move into the process of making difficult decisions. It's very easy to be a campaigner on a subject. You can salve conscience and be committed to something, but never have to make the hard choices of compromise between deciding between one thing or another. All of us on this platform have had that responsibility. And I would argue that in understanding the process of the common good, understanding how the process of politics works and shapes, and recognising the role that has to be played by those who make decisions is important, because it's become harder, because it's become easier simply to campaign and to reject politics if it doesn't do what we want it to do. We live in a world where we can choose almost, in Western society, in this country, choose all sorts of things and live a life in many ways that we want to. We can select the entertainment we want entirely off our own bat. We don't have to listen to anything we don't want to. We don't have to watch anything we don't want to. And yet when it comes down to politics, you're required to vote for one of a number of parties, some of whose opinions won't be yours. And people object to that, and they want a politics like the choice in everything else to do just what they want to do. And however you define the common good, you have to define a process that will choose between conflicting interests. And I think one of the things I'm very keen to ask an audience about is, how do we cope with that? How do we cope with conflict and choice when we can't decide what is necessarily always in the common good and how to achieve a particular aim? Remember, thinking about what the common good isn't about all deciding we think the same thing, because there will be a problem to face and there will be different ways to approach it. How do you deal with a society that's got wedded to benefit? How do you deal with a society where families have got used to living without work, generation after generation after generation? And where the old policies of putting huge amounts of money into it over a period of time affect no change in how people want to live? How do you deal with that when someone or some party comes along and challenges it and says, we're going to do something different that will be tougher, but we will get more people back into work and their lives will change and their families will benefit from that because of what we do? What's the space to allow a discussion of that as part of the common good, as opposed to setting up areas where people will find it very difficult to agree and it will become very easy to be polarised on one side or the other and to actually attack those who are seeking change because it seems unfair to some degree what they're doing? Migration was mentioned. Anna talked about the Pope urging us to recognise the capacity to weep. Any society would do that, a society that takes in migrants. Our capacity to weep has become immense because we know so much more about the problems around the world, and it's become so much easier for people to move around the world. How do we cope with those who would seek to be refugees from conflict areas? It's very, very difficult to make the choices. If you want to accept everyone who wishes to leave an area of conflict into your society, that's fine. There's no moral issue and you can be very happy with your choice. If you seek in any way to limit that, how are you going to do it? That gets you into the area of dealing with the common good but having to make difficult choices. So my plea for our discussion is that as well as agreeing on the issues which we know make for the common good, health, welfare, security, a welcome to strangers, a contribution to strangers abroad, welfare, work, how do we make the difficult choices within that in a Christian context and shape a political discourse which moves away from confrontation but recognises there can be different Christian approaches to some very difficult problems?